we kick off our first submission. So this submission is actually, it's our first one of the day. This is from an innovative company in Canada that's changing the way companies think about design. So I've talked to the owners of this company. They really believe that design is not just graphics, but it's actually design thinking. So Andrew, you and I probably know, can relate to this, thinking about sales process, sales sequences. Design has such a huge capacity, but these guys are changing the way they do it. So this asset specifically is designed to be the first touch in a prospecting outreach. It is a creative message to basically get new customers. Since they haven't launched yet, so their company is actually officially launching just this, like as we speak, they don't have any metrics to talk about. But without further ado, let's take a look. So Andrew, I wanted to take a quick look there, and then let's give your highlights, give your feedback.
Yeah, and as we go into this, I will say with everyone is I still know nothing, right? And when it comes to these sequences, and I never have the right answers. I have frameworks that I've learned, but it's never always the right answers, and I have opinions, right? My number one tip is we're gonna go through this, and as I criticize this here, is always be testing is the number one thing. From VPs, from all types of people, I'm always hearing, hey, like, what's the best type of templates people are using in sequences? And I always have to give them the answer no one likes, which is, it depends, right? It depends. Because I will say that there's no one best template out there. There is the best framework for building an optimization or a testing process amongst your content, right? So from what I see here, I could say it's from off the bat, I have some ideas, but just know that I'm always going to harp on that. Always be testing your content. ABT, right? So first off here, the first thing I'm going to see on this is like, it's really long. Yeah. Right? It is really long. If I see this, I'm going to go too long. I don't have enough time. I'm not going to read it. Right? Yeah. I mean, whenever I relate whenever I look at a template, what I think about in the framework I think about is I think of it as an ad today, an ad you see on Instagram or an ad you see on Facebook or like that. And you know, when you're all scrolling and you see something, like what catches your eye, right? I always take screenshots of things that catch my eye actually, because then I try and leverage that in templates that we test.
You do that too, Andrew?
Yeah, exactly. I know I'm so nerdy and boring, right? Like my fiance is like, wow, you screenshot ads. Like everyone hates ads, but you're so yeah, super boring, right? But yeah, just to get ideas of like what's working and what has captured your own attention, because you know, you typically, if you're selling to those people, you are part of your market, right? So off the bat here, like this is too much for me, right? Mm-hmm. This is not going to catch my eye. Do like the bullet points, short and sweet and to the point, something I do like here. Another thing is the call to actions are big. Lastly here, when it says, when can we hop on a call to discuss, right? Like if you tell me that, that's a big ask for me. Asking to hop on a call is a huge ask. Another framework or way to think about this is, what's a low friction call to action, right? And I like to think of it as a small yes. What's a small yes you can get from them? Hopping on a call is a big yes. Even for me, I'm not even that important, right? But that's a big yes. Imagine a VP, that's a super big yes. So look, in that sense, how can you gauge interest? Get them to say, hey, this is cool. Let me write a 1 or 2 liner back and say, hey, this is actually interesting. Send me more. That's it. Open to hearing more, right? Have you heard of this idea, right? Yeah. I have 2 ideas for you. Would you like to hear those? So being a little bit more human on it versus asking for 30 minutes of someone's time. So again, low friction call to actions is something here.
Or even just like do you agree, right? Like, do you agree with what I've said here?
Yeah. You know what? You brought up a great point, Jeff. And do you agree is big, because here's what I don't see enough of. Here's what some of our best SDRs at Outreach do. They take a stance on something, right? They take a stance and say, hey, I submitted a contact us demo form on your website and I still haven't heard back and it's been 3 days. That's not good. Here's why, right? and it's very like opinionated, but most people that have a desire to be better, and VPs that have a desire to be better
Yeah,
will say you are right, we should not be doing that. So I think part of it is taking a stance, and that's like with anything, right? One copywriter that I was studying a few months ago, yeah, and I read copywriting books too, right? I'm so boring. So yeah, so in reading the copywriting book, there's a great quote that one of these great copywriters said, which is, "They love me or they hate me. There's no money in the middle."
right.
Right?
Yeah,
And that related to copywriting. Basically, take a stance. Like, people are going to buy your stuff if they hate you sometimes,
yeah,
and then if they love you, they're going to buy your stuff. So either way, take a stance. No one likes indifference. So I think that's what's interesting here. Um, I think, the first part here, and Jeff, feel free to stop me anytime if I'm talking too much here.
sure,
I'm just
sure.
kind of blurting
Oh,
everything out.
I will. Trust me.
Okay, cool. Um, so, congrats on recent company achievement. It's funny. I sat to next to my CEO Manny for a few years, and I think one time I remember him saying like, "Oh, like, I appreciate the congrats, but like that doesn't help get a response, right?
Right.
Like, because how many other people are saying, hey, congrats on the recent funding, buy my stuff now. Every single person is reaching out to those VPs once they raise funding and once the news goes viral. I'll tell you that from experience, because I've seen it all the time, even myself. Again, I'm not even an important person, right?
Yeah.
And I get notes as as an account executive, a person at Outreach, saying, hey, like, let's buy our stuff. And I'm like, I'm not even your buyer. So, but thank you, right? So everyone's reaching out with that. Josh Braun has a good theory, and it goes back to looking at advertisements, which is be a red dot in a sea of white dots,
Right.
right? How do you do that? How do you catch that attention? And that's what's going to be important here.
Well,
And
one thing
go
I
ahead.
do like about this personalization, and maybe the recent achievement isn't the best one, but I like that they're building into their sequence the first line is something that they're
Yeah.
personalizing. You know,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
like that. I like
absolutely.
that approach.
It's a good, yes, personalization is a great way. Like, that's a start. If you're not personalized, that's table stakes today, right?
Yeah.
That, like, absolutely table stakes. People talk a lot about automation. Automation is great in certain circumstances. Your first email, you don't want it to be automated and canned, right? No way. Like, it's not going to work. So personalization. And I think what we're starting to see is the best SDRs that I see, not only at Outreach, but other high growth companies that I work with, is not just personalization, but relevancy.
Right.
It's one step. That's the next wave, right? 3 years ago, it was big personalization that worked a lot. Now it's starting to be relevant information. You're starting to see SDRs be professional, like intelligence finders, whatever the word is, right? Like, they're
Yeah.
just great at grabbing intel from other reps, from people that will actually respond, leveraging that information. It's just leveraging information, and then plugging that into a relevant email to that specific VP that they're reaching out to,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
So relevancy is what's big right now too. So personalization is a good start, and that I do like that about this email.
Yeah.
The second part builds curiosity. Does blank ever work with external cold consultancies? Big word there. Um, what I do is mention, I would probably keep this email at those first two bullet lines. I was wondering, does company name ever work with external consultancies? Because other similar consultancies, or other companies like yours, I'm noticing, are doing X, Y, and Z,
Right.
right?
Right.
Give a little bit of color of, like, a little bit of FOMO, right? Like, hey, we've got something here that you're not doing, and I just want to let you know about it.
And I like the word you use there, because. Because is such an amazing word. I worked with an occupational psychologist at one point where he was saying that when you're dealing with a resistant person, somebody who's resisting what you're saying, just by using the word because gets you that much further as far as getting the response from them. So even just using that word right there takes down some walls and says, okay, that's why Andrew's telling me this thing, right?
At 100%. And like, in Megan actually made another great point in the comments here. Like, why would a prospect spend 15 minutes with you when you haven't proven them you spent 15 minutes trying to learn that you could solve their problems, right? Yeah,
Well said, Nick.
it's so funny. It's so true. Like, um, you know, and there's a lot to this, right? Like, it takes time to find relevant information on companies, right?
Yeah,
So if SDRs have, they're not able to cover all of their accounts, and this is going more into the SDR function, but like, comes down to focus, right? Pick 10 a week,
yeah,
focus on those 10, get that info, and get those 10, right? That's what some of my best SDRs do. They're not so worried about the 100 that they have assigned. They're worried about the 10 of their favorites of that week, and they just go 100% into those 10, talk to reps, find that relevant information, and then plug that in around the company, to create some momentum.
and on that note, I mean, if you're only focusing on 10, that's such a different world than it was, a few years ago
Mm-hmm.
when people were just trying to say, okay, get 500 a week and get all the numbers so that we can get a response rate. But when you're focusing on 10, I mean, you're talking quality over quantity, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny how that works, right? I feel like it teeter-totters between quality, quantity, quality, quantity, quality, quantity. And it's just so interesting. Right now it has to be quality. But here's the thing with quality is you have to send the things in quantity in order to understand what quality looks like, right?
Right.
Hence why I say always be testing in order to get good testing results.
Yeah.
When A/B testing your templates, always be testing your templates. You need to have quality. You need to have quantity to do that. So just an idea there, and I know we're getting philosophical here, but there's always marketers love getting into this argument as well, right? Like, is it a quantity versus quality play on content? Copywriting is content too. It's the same thing, right? Sales, it's the same thing with these sequences. It's both, right? You need quantity in order to have quality to understand what resonates with different personas, with different people. So, yeah, and let's see. Nick said something here. Better to focus on a company relevancy or persona, personal level relevancy. Company pain versus. Um, so great question.
You know what I
It'd be
liked?
both.
You go first, Andrew.
um, so for me, it always ties back to like you're solving a business problem, right? As cliche as that is, it always ties back to a business problem. If you're reaching out to a VP, it always ties back to the company relevancy, what the company is doing, right? But of course, on the personal relevancy, yeah, it should be too, because at the end of the day, we're mammals and we're talking with other mammals, right? And we're human, and you can't lose that human touch.
Yeah, no, and I'd have to agree with you there. A good point on the company value, which is really important. I like to always make my most successful SDRs, business development reps, and full cycle AEs. They've always done the very personal approach. So that first manual is really about what's in it for me, what can I get out of it as the prospect, and I always find that. The personal touch works really well, and it really comes from that research. But to your point, Andrew, you can't really just talk about them personally and talk about them skiing and all that stuff. You have to bring it down to what they do for a living and what
Yeah.
business pain you're actually trying to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. It always comes down to that. It always comes down to that. And so that was a great question there, Nick. And I want to make sure we're not missing anyone else's questions here. Oh yeah, Paige put a good quote in here. Yes, yeses are good, nos are good, maybes will kill you. Skip Miller, 100%. Love that quote. Goes along the same lines of what we were just talking about there, Paige. So yes, 100%.
So Andrew, we're gonna
Yeah,
so we're running on time for this one.
yeah. Go
If
ahead.
we had to give three, or let's say one thing that you would say to make this a better email, what would you say?
Build curiosity from the beginning using relevant information.
Okay.
Right. And my own tests right now, I do this for fun. Again, I'm a boring person because I test emails for fun, right? Yeah, that's my life. So you check that out when I do that. honestly, my higher response to emails right now are like 1 or 2 lines.
Right.
They say, and they're nothing about me. People don't care who I am. They care about their problems. So,
Totally.
when you email me, I care about my stuff. That's how people work. So one thing I would do, keep it short, keep it sweet, and curious and relevant. Okay.
Awesome. So for me, I'm going to add to that. I 100% agree. I'm going to say make the person the hero. So make them the
Mm-hmm.
star.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I's and we's in this message, and I'd like to see it more about you and your. And then really solve a specific problem. So have an actual problem to solve, and it's pretty positive. So it's a very positive email. But I would want to see a little bit like of that curiosity through problem solving.
Yeah, absolutely.